We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We're in our second week of guest Mike Wallace, and here we'll be talking about performing on the track, fans, the heart message that running or owning a museum has, and our opinions about the greatness of Roger Penske. Let's have a listen.
It's neat that you back to the broadcast here, and we appreciate you folks tuning in here to Stock Car Facts with Mike Wallace, our guest here. It's neat that you brought up Joe Ruttman in the USAC Stock Car Series, because a lot of people don't remember that series. And your brother won the championship, I believe, in '79 or '80.
That could have been right. I mean, that year, and don't ever hold me to years, because I don't realize it's been that many years ago. I think. Right. But
people like AJ Foyt.
The USAC Stock Car Series was incredible. It was
arguably bigger than NASCAR at some point.
It gave competition to the NASCAR world. In our world, when we grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, it was bigger than NASCAR. Right. It was part of USAC.
Me in Detroit, same
United
thing.
States Auto Club, and they ran the Indianapolis 500. They had all open wheel stuff. AJ Foyt, I remember AJ Foyt putting an ass whipping on everybody at Springfield on the mile. And I talked to AJ. I seen AJ in November out in Houston. I do a charity golf tournament. And ran into Larry and Santino Ferrucci and all them at the golf course. And
bringing up some names.
Well,
wow.
you just think about. I mean, I can look at people. I got to drive for AJ Foyt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I drove the Conseco car. 14. I ran about 8 races for him, and improved their positions in NASCAR points. 3 positions. Mike Hillman was the crew chief at that time, and David Evans was over there. He works at Hendrick now. Was the motor guy, and I mean, I was kidding AJ the last time I seen him. They invited me to the Indy 500 2 years ago, so I went to that. And wow. We're just general BS, and for anybody that hasn't been, which is most people, have never been to the Indy 500, and you've never been in the garage stall of AJ Foyt at the Indy 500. He has the #1 garage stall.
Okay.
The first one out of the garage area is AJ's. And everybody who isn't anybody stops by AJ's deal and just listen to the stories. And I was kidding him. I says, AJ, the only thing I regret, I says, you were so damn nice to me. And he goes, I don't know what you mean by that. I goes, you were famous for ass chewings, and I never got one. I says, you were always complimenting me.
Give me one now.
He says, I can give you that now.
Part of the group.
So I have nothing but great stories with AJ Foyt. Larry Foyt, who was he was Xfinity or Busch Racing at the time. I was driving their Cup car. We become friends over all these years. I still now see those guys at least really once a year out in Houston, Texas at a charity golf tournament I do. They live on the property where the tournament's at. So.
Okay. And Jerry Foyt, I think you raced against him a couple of times in that.
I did, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I really know him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We've raced against a lot of people, a lot of names, and you find out you get yourself at the racetrack and you get consumed in your own little world inside your own cockpit, and you don't know who everybody else is. And but all great people, because most every racer that I know of is really a good person.
Yeah.
There's very few people that you just totally dislike. There are people I've raced against that I can say I dislike, especially in the way they race. Yeah. But then I find out how they are as people off the racetrack, and it's like, well, he's a good guy off the racetrack, and that's just how it works.
It's funny you say that, because I watched your brother Kenny on Dale Jr.'s podcast, and it's so, like you say, he's so honest. Mm-hmm. And he said he was talking about your brother and Dale Sr. He said a lot of people think they're a-holes. He said, but it's not that they're a-holes. They're so focused on what they're doing that they don't have time for this, they don't have time for that. They're trying to win, they're trying to run up front, and then, like you say, later on, you go, oh, good guys. And it was funny he said that, because, you hear all these differing, I got Jeff Gordon's autograph. He was so nice to me. Another guy said, he walked right by me and he didn't do it. Not picking on anybody, but just, saying names. I mean, you get that all the time, and it just depends on the day you catch them, depends on what they're doing. But I thought that was a great point to say, no, he's not an a-hole. He was trying to win. He was focused.
I think you have to put it in perspective, and I want everybody, because I've heard that from everybody. I've heard it about myself. I've heard about whatever. the one thing you have to remember is when a race fan, which we love the race fans, need the race fans, they're showing up at the racetrack on a vacation.
Yeah, right.
They are there for their one of their 2 weeks of vacation, or 2 of 2, or 1 of 1, or a few days. And they have bought and got a garage pass somewhere, or they've got an infield pass where they're close to drivers. What they don't realize, they totally forget, the driver is there to perform on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
Yeah.
Has to win races.
Yeah.
That driver will not be around to sign their autograph if he doesn't win races.
Right.
And if you ask anybody, do you take people to work with you?
Right.
Do you have 50 people standing at the corner of your desk when you're trying to make a stock trade for a commodity broker?
Right,
no,
right.
you don't. It's so far-fetched.
Or sticking a camera under the toilet, like your brother said, or you said that, or Kenny said.
There's just crazy things that have happened that are but
nuts.
I mean, think about it. People always wonder why, baseball players don't sign autographs at the ballpark. Football players don't sign. Basketball players don't. Hockey players don't sign.
And they're not in the freaking clubhouse.
Yeah, well, they they eliminate the deal. So if you find one of those people out and around, it's a big deal. Yeah. A lot of people complain that NASCAR drivers, one side of them, they love them because they take the time and they're so generous with their time, which they are. The others is like, well, he wouldn't stop and give me an autograph. Well, no disrespect, we don't owe you an autograph.
Right.
The respect to say, boy, I wish I could have got his autograph. I know he's busy. Or, hey, I know you're busy, but could you?
Yeah.
There's ways fans can approach people. Again, I'll go back to it. You just mentioned Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt. Probably two of the most caring, giving people in the country, as far as philanthropy stuff. But when they're at the racetrack, they were dead on. They were serious. They had to win. And that's why they become so famous.
Yeah.
You hope the race fan and the participants, everybody just realizes that. And I think a lot of people do. But there's that certain group that don't and think
want to scream the loudest to show you who you hear.
I mean, and places like Pocono. Pocono was a place that put in a driver autograph fence line, which was great for Pocono. But what a pain for drivers.
You couldn't get to
and then they shamed other racetracks into doing things. Daytona now, they have an open window in the Cup garage area where the fans can
reach through.
They reach through, but they make you feel like you're in a fishbowl. They're standing at the window looking in, and you're working.
Or they lower the fishing line down.
And it's like, lower this, and it's like, so it's unique. Race fans are the most wonderful people in the world. They really are. They spend their hard-earned money coming to watch races. They pick their particular driver that they love. And it's funny at the racetrack, because souvenirs are such a big deal, is when the guy is begging for your autograph, but he's got somebody else's T-shirt on. I used to kid people all the time. They used to always have Rusty Wallace gear on because he sold, they sold a lot of T-shirts. It's like, hey, you're my favorite, but Rusty's my guy. And I go, hey, look at here. I totally understand. I said, but think about it on the bright side. I'm glad you bought his T-shirt.
Yeah.
And they go, why? And I go, he's got an airplane and a jet, helicopter jet, and he lets me use both of them because you gave him enough money.
On it.
So it's all perfect.
Well, and on top of that, people forget that fan is short for fanatic. I've always said I don't think NASCAR should. If NASCAR has a fan council, they should take just a little bit of what they say, because it changes so frequently. I mean, like for example, and again, this is kind of going way back. I remember when Winston stopped sponsoring the Cup Series.
Yep.
And fans said, well, why can't you just call it the Winston Cup Series anyway? I mean, they're right into scene saying that, and I'm just going, you just don't get it, do you? I mean,
since you mentioned Winston, even though they're not around any longer in motorsports and want themselves totally exited from it, they last year got the NASCAR museum closed down, the Winston Cup Museum in Winston-Salem, just because they didn't want the person having the brand. But if it had not been for them, and for Mr. Seagraves and the people and the big marketing staff there at RJR, I would have never won the NASCAR Winston Racing Series in 1990. Beat, Frank Kimmel. I never knew who Frank Kimmel was. I'm racing against him, and he's over here racing.
Right.
I win the championship. He goes on to win 17 or 18 ARCA championships.
I'd love to get you two in a room and go at it about that.
But the RJR brand was so huge to the sport. I think the only thing everybody's wishes could happen is that type of brand sponsorship come back to the sport. Because they short track race, they cup race, they help market the brand.
Drag race.
You went to the racetrack, and when you were in that town, you knew there was a NASCAR race, a drag race, or whatever, But we got all those rules changed because we got, in the political world, they get changing things. But RJR, the Winston brand, was probably the biggest catalyst for motorsports ever, still today. Yeah.
I got another little side note. I have a funny story about, sad for me, the museum there. I had interviewed one of Buddy Arrington's jackmen. I'd already had Joe Arrington on the show, and he bought that place up in Martinsville. He bought an old part of the mall, an old Sears. He's putting all his dad's memorabilia in it. He's got an auto repair place on the other side of the building. So I interviewed his old jackman there. He started Buddy's fan club. Well, anyway, so I said, I want to go see the Winston Museum. They said, yeah, it's not too far away, but you better hurry because it's getting late in the day. I think it was a Saturday or something, and it was ready to close. And what I had heard is I think it was going to close. I think they're not open Sunday or something like that, and then by Monday it's closed. I get down there real quick, so I fly down the freeway and I'm following the GPS like this, and I get there. I pull on the door. Dang, it's locked. The lights are all on. Go to the other side. Pull on that door. Private party. Missed it.
Yeah, well,
I would have had half an hour if it was open, and I missed it.
It's really crazy. I was only at the museum once, and I got a call and said, man, you really need to come see this. It's just, I know things probably don't mean a lot because you were involved in it, but like the Winston, the brand, fought the ownership,
everybody's life.
And took it away from them. They closed it up. They didn't want the Winston brand just in a museum status out there. And I went there, and what a great memory. I actually bid on a lot of things that were in the Winston Museum just to have, and I didn't get them. And
Phil Combs got them all right.
I don't know who bought all. I seen Phil last year at Tri-County Speedway. It's funny he's mentioned his name. My daughter Chrissy sat on the pole and won 2 races up there driving for Jeremy Mayfield at the end of last year. And But I admire the people that are museum curators.
It's a big job.
I'm not, keeping the sport relevant, keeping the old past, all the drivers that were somebody and not even somebody in there, and the racetrack that was a big deal. And so it takes a lot.
Now, I try to keep racing history going, get people to tell their own stories doing this, but it's not tangible. Like a museum is tangible. You can see it, you can touch it. Well, don't touch it, but
yeah.
You can maybe touch something, or you're there, you can smell it. And I can't imagine. You got to get a brick and mortar, then you got to get stuff to put in it. I agree. I'm from Detroit. There's not a lot of museums left up there.
I would have to believe a museum is what I call a heart message. You have to want to do it. It's a lot of things that it's a cost basis. It's not like you got to spend money. Kind of like being a racer, you had to spend money to put the museum together.
Don Miller. Oh my God, I can't imagine.
You got to be the curator to keep it going. You got to figure out who's going to basically loan you cars or give you cars that are going to be retained by the museum forever.
And can you imagine the cost of the insurance on some of that stuff?
Well, I don't worry about those things. I don't get into it, and because that's too in depth. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I talk to Winston Kelly now and then. He's the curator of the NASCAR Museum or the Hall of Fame downtown. And even though that's a highly funded program through the city and everything else, it's just keeping things that are relevant, keeping programs that are relevant. Right. You mentioned Don Miller. Don was a family friend of ours from St. Louis, Missouri, that gave Rusty his start in racing, got him his opportunity to drive for Roger Penske at Atlanta. Drove the number 2 car, finished second there. I changed the right rear tire that day.
Okay.
I was the tire changer on it.
For that stupid number 2 car going by us.
It was a fun time, and there's a lot of things that they're unbelievable.
Yeah.
Of how they materialize at a later time. I remember Roger Penske looking at Rusty when that race was done, and telling him, "I don't know when we'll ever race again together. But when we are," and I heard this clear out of Roger's mouth, "when we do, I'll make you a star."
Wow. Kept his word, didn't he?
They kept their word to each other, and it was many years before Roger and Rusty and Don all got together.
Yeah.
And they did it in a spectacular way.
Roger Penske, he's from Detroit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been to his office up there on the end of. His office is in Bloomfield Hills, which is a real nice part of town. Matter of fact, Oakland County, Michigan, just north of Detroit, is 6th highest per capita income in the country, believe it or not. But the OEMs and the car companies, it kind of makes sense. Well, Roger's office is just in that north part of that town on Telegraph and Square Lake, and you wouldn't even know it. You think about it and you go, that's the kind of guy Roger is. Not flashy, not loud. You just look at this building and you just go, I'll send you a picture of it when I go by it. I go by it all the time. You'll go, my God, you're right. Just white windows and no signage. And there was, when the Super Bowl came to town in 06, there was a reporter following him around, and I'm thinking, oh great, typical sports guy going to write about a racing car owner. This is going to be a hatchet job. And he just totally presented Roger in this terrific light. And one of the stories I'll relate is that they had parking all over the city, and they take shuttles and whatever. And this was way down. I don't know if you're familiar with Detroit. The Belle Isle is way away from downtown, probably a good 10-minute drive by shuttle. But they had parking lined up. Well, they had trash cans and liners and all this. Well, they pull up to this older African American gentleman, and Roger called him by his first name, and the reporter pointed it out, saying he never forgets a first name. He knows every face. He's remembers every detail, and that's Roger Penske. Like John Markham said once, he said, if Roger and I are standing next to each other, I got a cabbage under my arm, and he's got a cabbage under his. Mine goes bad, and he grows 3.
Well, the stories that I know about Roger, and I only know a micro fraction, like that much of anything. Roger's got an incredible memory. He literally, what you just mentioned, he can walk through one of his new car dealerships, is the way it's described. He can walk through the front door, walk to the back, meet everybody, and walk from the back to the front, calling everybody by their first name, and their name's not on their shirt.
Yeah.
And I remember the things that they do, and I told Greg Penske this. I just told this to Greg 2 years ago at the Indy 500. I said, boy, you really influenced my life. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you asked me to do a driver appearance for you at California Speedway, and you personally come and got me race morning. And we walked in an end gate, and there was trash laying on the ground. And as we walked in, you stopped and picked it up and threw it away, and I made a comment to you. God, I can't believe you picked that up. He goes, it's our place, man. We ask people to pick up trash all day long. There's nothing wrong with me picking it up myself.
Wow.
And I understand, Roger, his organization, and I only know Roger primarily through Rusty, but I did get to drive 8 races for Roger Penske. Saved my career, revitalized my career driving the 12 car. Yeah. And he just does everything to perfection. There's certain ways people do things, and there's certain people that work for people. And if you get hired by that Penske group, you know how you're supposed to be, you know how you're supposed to act, you know how you're supposed to dress. He got to look the part to be the part, and he's the perfect example of that. And I've done some podcasts when I had the podcast going Fast Car to NASCAR with Mike Wallace. I remember interviewing Paul Tracy and Mario Andretti, and we all talked about their meetings they had to have with Roger, and it was at that facility, and it always happened at 10 o'clock or later at night, because he didn't want anybody to know anything about it. Wow. It was private meetings, and he didn't want anybody being around that could spread the word. And it's kind of cool stories, because it's and look, I know very little about Roger. I know very little about Penske racing, but if you really think about it, there's very little gossip ever about their organization.
Oh, you're right.
Whenever it's announced, it's done, it's over with. And it wasn't like, well, maybe this person's going there or that person. No, it's just, you're fired and you never come back. And, or you whatever, so.
He was a huge name, and I've grown up in the 70s because he owned Michigan International Speedway. So, of course, you always mention Roger Penske, owner of the track, is all we had. Other than Flat Rock and Toledo, that's it. So he would stand out there. They had staging on the south side of the track, And he would stand there at 6, 7 o'clock at night when the campers are coming in. Of course, my grandfather, thinking I guess he's funny, said, counting up the till there, Roger, you know. But he, from what I heard before he sold his tracks, and I think I'm going to get this right, Disney has some kind of executive boot camp type of training just for executives.
Okay.
And Roger went to it. And here, we're talking Roger Penske. And I think this is early 90s, you know. So Roger's already, we know,
he's already Roger.
And, you know, they run it like a boot camp and said, you know, what do you run? You know, what is you, blah, blah, blah. And then they got to Roger and, well, you know, what's your attendance numbers or something like that? And he said, well, we have 80,000 fans. No, it's not fans, it's guests.
Yeah.
And they were, you know,
there's all those type of organizations out there that, you know, even though the greatest CEOs of today, they still go and get educated. They still go to stay in tune with what's happening. You know, they made it through the ranks somehow, or built the ranks that they're the boss, but they can't run everything by themselves, so they got to be in tune to what's happening. And
the respect level I had for Roger went through the roof when that 1 year at Indy, when none of his cars
none of his cars made the race.
He said, no, we're not buying our way in.
Yeah.
We're going to go home and get better. So, wow, that's.
Yeah, well, that's.
I'd like you to go to your sponsor to explain that.
Well, the difference. I don't know how we got on Roger Penske so much here, but the end result, if you really study motorsports, Roger's organizations, because he's so big in the automotive world. Like, I don't know the exact number, but he has 340 or 50 car dealerships worldwide.
Yeah.
Worldwide. And he deals with every car manufacturer. And Roger, if you look in the race world, he's the only guy that I know of that deals with multiple OEMs at the same time, races different brands at the same time, running Porsches in the road race world, running Fords in the stock car world.
Got the Super Cup
you know, he's got all these different things, but he's, you know, because he's a businessman, they don't take this just as racing. This is a business, and you know, that's how you're seeing that happen in today's race world too. All these organizations that we think are just race teams, they're business organizations that they happen to race.
Yeah.
You know, they have a race team that's a catalyst to their businesses.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Next week we'll talk about, well, I called it he and Steele and Purvis dominating ARC in the 90s. I don't know if Mike agreed with that. He didn't seem to react. The 1995 Talladega win and his Blue Angels experience. And also Mike Gator Allgaier. We'll see you next week.